Good morning all and welcome and thank you for attending our webinar on our recently launched Directors and Officers Protection. My name is Jo Darkins and I have the pleasure of leading our professional and financial risks team across the UK. You're going to hear today from Matt Houghton, our Head of Financial Risks, Patrick Kane, who is our underwriting leader in London and the South, Julie Goodyear, one of our claims unit leaders, and Phil McDowell, our relationship manager from our global network team. To set the scene a little bit before I hand over to Matt, some of you would have already heard Ken Norgrove, our CEO, talking about our strategic objectives. We have three of them. Our customers are our advocates and brokers value our expertise. Our people are engaged and our company is one of the most respected. In fact, Ken's gone to press with his desire to be the best commercial insurer in the UK by the end of 2025. Under the customer objective, we're really committed to improving our products and propositions. Last year, we refreshed our management protection proposition and launched our pension trustees liability product. And this year, the focus has been on creating our improved corporate D&O protection. Today, we're going to talk you through our proposition and our roadmap for the future. We're going to talk a little bit about our capability and our footprint across the UK. We're going to share with you some information on our global network capability, and we're going to talk to you about our market-leading claim service. There'll then be an opportunity for us to open to questions that you may have at the end. I'll hand over to Matt Houghton.
Hello everyone. Yep, I'm Matt Houghton. So I'm the Head of Financial Risks here at RSA. I joined mid-October last year, so just over a year now that I've been here. So it's really good. In terms of what we've achieved in that year, it's been very impressive. And just to give you a little bit of background in terms of our financial risks product suite and the work that had done prior to me joining, which unfortunately I can't take any of the credit for, and then the work that we've done this year, I thought I'd just show you this slide really quickly just to show you where we are. So financial risks, I think, is a bit of an RSA definition, but basically what it means is financial lines excluding PI and cyber. And as you can see from this graphic, last year we refreshed the management liability protection. So that's the multi-line policy, D&O, CLL, EPL, etc. And we also launched pension trustees as well last year. So when I joined towards the end of that year, 2023, the biggest opportunity, the biggest piece of work that was still to be done was launching an updated, genuine corporate D&O product for those larger insureds. And we did it. And we did it in a year, basically, which from previous places that I've worked is pretty impressive. And that really shows the momentum and sort of the investment and just the will to keep improving that I've seen since I've joined RSA. There's still work to be done, and we have a slide towards the end where I'll just show you our roadmap in terms of what we've still got to try and do for next year. But you can see here that we refreshed MPL last year, we launched PTL. This year we've got corporate D&O launched. First half of next year we'll launch a standalone EPL product to stand next to that corporate D&O. And crime's the only one that's not really had a refresh, but all of the feedback that we've had from the market is that our crime product is one of the strongest out there. So unless I'm told anything to the alternative, at the moment, we're pretty confident with that crime package where it is. So if we turn our attention to the new corporate D&O wording, and don't worry, this is more of a holistic view of financial risks at RSA. I'm not going to spend an hour going through the wording or anything like that, but I do want to pick out a few bits and pieces just so you can see what we've done with this particular product. It's quite comprehensive in terms of the extensions that we've provided. So that's the column on the left-hand side. As you'd imagine, we've got obviously side A, side B, and SEC covers the insuring clauses. We provide that additional limit for non-exec directors. And there's a lot of extensions that you'd probably expect, but there's some that I think stand us apart from other products in the market. So we have our crisis and regulatory event costs extension. So that's the ability for an insured to pull pull sort of PR and crisis management costs as part of the claim, or it gives that extra bit of not even protection, but an extra piece of cover. EPL, I just want to highlight, we all know that obviously an EPL claim against an insured person will be covered under the insuring clause anyway, but we wanted to kind of just signpost it so that when you talk to your insureds, they can see that that cover is in place. In terms of investigations, our definition is quite wide because it also includes internal investigations, and there's no specific list for what would trigger a pre-investigation either. It's as wide as our definition of investigation. I think probably quite a unique coverage that RSA offer is that kidnap and ransom event crisis costs. So that's if someone from the organization were to be kidnapped, we can access, again, crisis PR costs in as part of an additional cover under the policy. In terms of mitigation, we include not just a potential claim as a trigger for mitigation costs, but also a potential investigation as well. And as I mentioned just then, our definition of investigation is quite wide. So should be looking at a bona fide PTL policy anyway. But again, I don't think this is something that's fully replicated in the market. It gives an element of cover to insure persons for their capacity when they're acting as a pension trustee. In terms of the exclusions, we only have 4 of them in the wording. We include, in terms of the prior knowledge and fact, we do include a prior and pending date. We're not necessarily always going to use it. We can set that as none on the schedule. When we created this product, it's a bit like a Swiss Army knife, really. We kind of wanted to make it as agile and the ability to change things as easily as possible. So we've included the ability to set a P&P date, but it doesn't necessarily mean as part of our strategy we will also always do so. We also, compared to our management liability wording, we've moved all of the sublimits for extensions onto the schedule so we can easily change them as necessary, as opposed to them being baked into the wording. And these are just probably sound quite minor quality of life changes, but I think it genuinely gives us the ability to move a little quicker and be a little more agile. Moving on to sort of how this new product fits into our current product suite for the management liability and D&O. We have our MLP wording, which is the 2 purple boxes. That's the same wording, whether you use the distribution method going through the online SME portals, or if you come directly to an underwriter, our MLP wording will be identical. It's exactly the same. So this wording now slots in for obviously publicly traded organizations and also for private companies that are quite large. Now we've put a little guide there as £250 million in turnover as a threshold between when an insured will be on the MLP wording and when they'll move to corporate. That's not a line in the sand. That's not a strategy piece. That's a conversation that you as a broker can have with the insured, with the underwriter, for those private companies that sit in that space as to when they want to move from an MLP wording onto a corporate proposition. But we obviously wanted to put at least a number in there as a little bit of a guide, so at least you get an idea of where we think insurers need to start thinking about moving from that MLP onto a corporate proposition. And just really briefly, just to kind of go over what our appetite looks like, not just for D&O, but for all of the financial risks suite. I genuinely think that our appetite is very broad, sometimes to the point that we can surprise brokers when we have these conversations around our appetite. So in terms of capacity that we can deploy, they're up there at the top. So 50 million for D&O, 10 million for PTL, and 20 million for crime. And then you can see the 2 little boxes below. The one on the left applies to D&O and PTL, and the one on the right applies to crime. And they're our current in terms of our excluded trade classes. you can see that they're quite short. There'll be things in there, there'll be nuances, but we have quite a wide appetite for all of financial risks. I think probably we need to, as we go into 2025, probably try and shout about a little bit more so people are aware of what we can and can't do. And then briefly, I just wanted to touch on the additional benefits that are available as for not just this D&O policy, the corporate D&O policy, but also for the MLP policy too. This list of benefits applies to both of those wordings. And I think that's really a sign of where we are with D&O at the moment in terms of course, the policy is ultimately there to protect the decision makers of an organization. But we've also started to see extra benefits come into that product. And I think we've got quite a comprehensive list. You can tell me if there's something there that we're missing. And if we are, then I'm more than happy to have a look at what we can do. But ultimately, the idea is that the insured can use these services, use these guides. It benefits us as an insurer as well as the insured. So they've got the health and safety advice line, tax advice, the stress counselling service for insured persons. So that's kind of sitting outside of the legal regulatory advice framework. That's purely a benefit to insured persons that they can have those conversations. We obviously have a specialist legal advice line that we can help. We've already talked briefly about crisis management. And then last year, we launched what we call the RSA Business Support product, which I'll just quickly touch on a quick slide. This is a hub that insureds can go to. They get free access as part of being a D&O customer and client of RSA. Probably more aimed towards the MLP side of the product line than corporate, but I can't imagine why corporate insurers wouldn't find some benefit there as well. They get advice, they get thousands of sort of pre-drafted document templates that they can use if they need to. Again, these extra little benefits that sometimes insurers just don't really know about. They sit at the front of the policy. They probably don't always see that they're there, but they can be of real benefit to the insured. And that's ultimately what we want them to be there to do. That's what we pay for these services to be available for. So again, useful for conversations with insureds when you have talking about cover and cover enhancements and just the extra bits and pieces that attach to D&O. And then finally from me, as no doubt you're probably tired of hearing from me speaking, but I just kind of wanted to have one more slide. I kept pushing the boundary, I suppose, on how many slides I could have. I think I was originally only supposed to talk for 4 of them, but just one more slide. And this goes back to the first one we talked about in terms of the product suite. You can see the amount of work that we've done over last year and over this year. And I just wanted to really highlight that for us, that's not the end. We want to maintain that momentum into 2025. And I've already got a list of those 3 things there of pieces of work that we're going to pick up next year in order to continue to enhance and review that product suite for financial risks. So our MLP wording and our PTL wording, they were only launched last year, but I want to do a 12, 18 month review of those products now that they've been out in the market. I want us to be able to obviously do any sort of corrections that we need to, but also look to see if we need to expand the coverage, enhance them at all. We need to launch that standalone EPL wording for our corporate insureds who are going to sit on this corporate D&O wording. And we're going to expand our UK domicile headquarters appetite across financial risks as well, so that we can really start to, we've already made some expansion there this year, but again, we're not satisfied with a little bit. We want to keep pushing and keep that momentum going forward. So I suppose long story short, I hope you get not just a taste of what that corporate D&O product looks like, but also an understanding of, I guess, our ambition in financial risks at RSA and our desire to continue to expand and grow and make sure that ultimately we're where we want to be, which is in that top tier of financial risks carriers. When you get a new piece of D&O, PTL, crime, or when you're looking to market and insure that sits with policies in that sector, we ultimately want to be one of the first names that you think of in order to approach and have a conversation with. And I suppose whilst we're talking about having conversations with underwriters, that quite neatly leads me on to the next slide. So I'll hand over to Pat, who's going to talk about our capability and our footprint in terms of our underwriting presence across the UK.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. Good morning, everybody. I'm Patrick Kane. I'm the underwriting lead for our London and South FR underwriters. We in Profin are a countrywide business with 4 principal regions. We cover Glasgow for Scotland, Northern Ireland and the Isle of Man. We have the North region, which is based out of Manchester and Leeds. We have the Midlands and West region based out of Birmingham, Bristol, and we have the London region covering London and the South. There are within Profin some 60 odd employees and circa 50 to 53 actual active underwriters. The London area we split into specific teams for our FR and PI capabilities due to the size of the business. But we are able to service your clients wherever they may be domiciled across the UK and Northern Ireland and their global footprint. That's pretty much all I have to say in terms of our abilities. So I'll now pass on to Phil to talk about our global network.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So I am Phil McDowell. I'm a strategic relationship manager in the RSA and Intact Global Network. So the global network that we have has probably been in its current form for roughly about 30 years. We have 130 partners, which could give us access to 150 countries around the world. That is a mix of 8 RSA and Intact offices, with the rest being third-party network partners that we have contractual arrangements with. That network is built primarily on property and casualty lines of business, but an area of focus for us is to grow in our financial lines areas. So for directors and officers, we have access to over 85 countries now, and that is something that's continually growing. I would say since we started working on a sort of focused project for this over the last 2 years, we've added an additional 15 to 20 countries in that time. In terms of how that dovetails with our other RSA and Intact offices. So again, at the moment, there is product development taking place with our European operation. So we're expecting to have some more management protection capability established there. And basically, whenever that product capability gets enhanced, then our network users get the benefit of that. So the UK will get the benefit of the offering that is available in those territories. You will see that as we compare to other carriers in the marketplace, there are some which have a much more owned office network. Ours is relatively small in that sort of comparison, but we see that as a benefit. That's a benefit to us because for those network partners that we have, they are contracted. We have specific terms and conditions around service performance, when they should be issuing policies, when they should be updating us around claims handling. And so that means that we can monitor performance. So we have a team in London and Liverpool, which are very centralized. They have all the AMI that comes through that system, and we can monitor the performance of our partners across the globe. If we see underperformance, we will do our best to educate those offices. We will work with them to build on their wordings. But ultimately, if it's not working for us and for our customers, we have that flexibility to change partners when we need to. If you've got an owned office network, it is much harder to get rid of one of your own offices if they're underperforming. In terms of the volume of what we see through the networks, we've got up around 3,000 multinational customers, about 14 to 15,000 policies issued every year, an annual premium flowing through our network of about 350 million. Again, that's growing. If we compare 22 to 2023, that's been an increase of about 50 million pounds of premium flowing through our network. So we have a lot of customers, we have a lot of business that flows through, and that supports the wider strategic goals of the Intact and RSA group. In terms of some of the things that we feel that we do differently, so I've talked a little bit about the central control that we have. So again, we have a simple reinsurance route. So all of the information, all of the financial movement of money and claims for premium or claims flows through that one point. So we have visibility of it, and we can make sure that we are compliant in all the various countries that we need. So we make sure that RSA Re, which is our internal reinsurance vehicle, is registered as a reinsurer in all the countries around the world where they need to be. That means that we can maximize the premium that comes out of the country and back to us, so that we're being as efficient as possible and make sure that central control exists. Some other carriers in the market will operate what we would call a hub model, where it's not quite so simplified. What I mean by that is, if you had a local policy requirement in Brazil, to get access to Brazil from the UK, you would go from the UK to a European hub, to a North American hub, to a Central American hub, and finally getting to Brazil. So you have much more steps in the chain as you're communicating your instructions and your escalations. With our network, we give our users direct access to the partners. So what we mean by that is that in the UK, our underwriting team work closely with our operations team based in Chelmsford, and Chelmsford have direct contact with the people in Brazil that will be handling that policy. So it gives us much more flexibility and speed when it comes to getting instructions across, but also with escalation. I say our central team in the UK are not there as an extra step. We are there as an escalation point. We have strategic relationships with senior executives at all of our partners, and that's right the way up to CEO level. So we can influence and support where required. You will note that on the slide there, you don't just see RSA and Intact names, you see some other large insurance carriers. So they're what we call strategic network partners. Some of those names will be very familiar to you. And why are they there? They are there because they see the benefits of our network, and they will pay RSA and Intact an annual fee to access our network, giving those companies a global capability footprint. So that's the best recommendation we can ask for, that you've got A-rated, well-established insurance companies that want to use the service that we have. We feel it's a real benefit. It adds volume to our business, but it's a real testament to the hard work that we do. Again, when it comes to monitoring our performance, something else that we do a little bit differently is that we will conduct audits of our partners. And that's all about making sure that we're keeping the promises that we make to our customers, i.e. that whenever they give us instructions on what they want for a local policy, we're checking to make sure that that's matched in what's received locally. And that will ensure that we give a quality product that is compliant in a market, and that we can confirm that we review this and we enforce it, and we improve where it needs to be. So that's a very quick sort of snapshot in terms of what we do. I'm going to pass over to Julie now, who will talk to you about our claims proposition.
Right, so good morning. Yes, my name's Julie Goodchild, and I'm the unit leader for the financial line side of our Profit and Claim team. And I just want to take a couple of minutes to say a few words about our team, highlight some key aspects of our proposition in relation to D&O claims, and also give you a bit of a flavour of our general ethos towards claims handling. And at RSA, we've been handling professional and financial lines claims for well over 40 years. And we have a huge amount of experience and longevity in this market. Obviously, a lot's happened in that time. Everything from the Maxwell pension fraud, the collapse of Enron in the US, tragedies like Ladbroke Grove and, of course, Grenfell Tower, and the rise of classic collective actions. And all of those have given rise to significant D&O claims that we've had to respond to and support our insureds through. During that time, customer expectations have evolved, and there's a growing demand for transparency and speed of response in terms of handling those claims. And certainly directors of companies are much more knowledgeable these days about their policy, more empowered, and quite rightly, they expect timely, efficient and fair resolution of their claims when they arise. So we're rising to that challenge and aiming to provide a seamless claims experience for the insureds who are facing an increasing range of issues, from regulatory scrutiny to dissatisfaction from stakeholders, whether they're corporate, individual or investors. So we have a professional and financial lines claims team of around 29 people based in 2 locations. We've got a team of about 20 based in Horsham in West Sussex, and also a team of 9 up in Glasgow. And we believe that we are actually the only insurer with a professional and financial lines claims team in Scotland. And we see that as a really important USP in terms of our ability to service and support our Scottish-based clients. And as you'd expect, in common with many insurers, our team is split into professional lines and financial lines so that we can create that specialism and that focus on capability. So the financial lines team that I lead, which is based in Horsham, is a team that purely deals with D&O, crime and DPL claims. And our handlers have got extensive experience across the whole range of sectors, from small SMEs through FTSE listed companies up to multinational companies. And we have a fully developed proposition for handling D&O claims. We've got a comprehensive set of SLAs, both for our in-house claims handling, but we also impose those on our legal panel. We're fully supported by a market-leading legal panel and loss adjusting capability. And they're also put through a very rigorous process to get a place on our panel. But through that, we believe that we've put in place the best combination of capability plus market-leading rates. And that creates real value for clients by delivering the expertise they need when they have a claim, but also combines with our ability to control cost and protect their policy limits. And the firms we're using on that panel you'll be familiar with, and that includes the likes of Kennedy's, DAC Beechcroft, Beale & Co, and Brodie's up in Scotland. And as was mentioned earlier, through that panel, we're able to offer a legal helpline where our D&O clients can get up to 2 hours of free legal advice on anything relating to D&O and EPL. And all they have to do to access that is call the number in their policy wording and quote their policy number. And we can also offer a comprehensive insight piece either generally or respect to clients or sectors. And as has been said many times, insurers are in many ways data companies these days. We hold a lot of information, and the ability to analyse that data and identify emerging trends and risks is an important part of our claims service. I think it is really important to say that we fundamentally believe that when an insured has a claim, that is our first material opportunity as an insurer to deliver value in the product that they purchased, and we take that responsibility very seriously. And I think just to try and convey our ethos and our approach to claims handling, I think there are 4 key things. The first thing is brilliant service. And obviously no insurer gets it right 100% of the time on every claim, but we have consistently scored very highly on our broker voice survey. We've very recently had the results from this year's survey and have scored a +62, which we're very proud of. And that's your rating that you've given us based on how we've performed across a range of metrics that include service and also include our technical capability. That score consistently puts us top within the RSA commercial claims teams. And we also know that that compares really favourably with our peers. The second key thing for us is communication. That's obviously essential to maintaining trust between us as insurers, you as brokers and your client. And by that, we mean ensuring that the client has an understanding of how their claim's being handled, what the reasons are behind the decisions we make on that claim, and also what to expect through that claims process. We aim for there to be no surprises. Obviously, occasionally when you're handling between 4,000 and 5,000 claims a year, there are issues that arise on a small number of those claims. And when that situation does happen, our commitment is to explain to you clearly what the issue is at the earliest opportunity and be open and honest with you about that. And then to keep you updated and set a clear way forward as to what and how we collectively need to proceed to be able to resolve that issue. Finally, it's about our people and their deep claims expertise. And obviously, a lot has changed in the world of insurance, but the importance of human expertise, we think, remains paramount, and particularly when you're dealing with the kind of claims we are, which are not process-driven and require a much more bespoke approach. And our claims adjusters obviously are on the front line. They're interacting directly with clients. They're making critical decisions that impact the outcome of claims. And so ensuring that they're well-trained, supported and equipped to handle the complexities of those claims is a really important priority for us. And 82% of our staff are either ACII qualified or have a legal qualification. we invest heavily in their continued professional development. And again, we've recently had the results of our employee engagement survey for this year, and our team scored an excellent 90%, which again, we're very proud of. And I think part of that comes down to the fact that we don't rely on secondees and we don't outsource any of our claims handling. It's all dealt with in-house by our staff with the supporter panel, and our staff feel supported and empowered enough to address that. So I think, as Joe mentioned at the start, RSA is on the path to being the best commercial insurer in the UK. And that absolutely includes being the best commercial claims function. And within that, we want to be the best professional and financial lines team. So that's a little bit of a whistle-stop tour about our teams and our proposition. We believe it's an excellent proposition and capability that delivers efficient, transparent and effective claims resolutions for your clients. And on that note, I will now hand back to Mel for the Q&A.
Thanks, Julie. Looking at the Q&A just now, there's only a couple of questions that have come in. So I'd encourage anybody, if you get any questions you want to ask the panel, please put them in the chat and we'll go through them. A couple that have come through. Matt, if I can start with yourself. Obviously, you've touched on high level what our appetite is. How can a broker understand more around our appetite across our product lines?
That's a good question, and I'm very pleased that we've just got to this point, because for all of us who are based in London, there's just been a test of the fire alarm. So I'm really sorry, Julie, because I was very like hearing what you were saying. I missed the last 3 minutes, and I was starting to get really worried we were going to go to Q&A whilst they were still trying to evacuate the building. So luckily, I think I can't smell any smoke. I think no one's running out, so I'm all right to carry on for now. Going back to the question, the easiest answer, and it goes back to that capability slide that we showed you, we've got a really big footprint of experienced financial lines underwriters and FR underwriters across the UK. So I would say reach out to your local underwriters, whether that's the underwriting leader, whether it's underwriters that you already deal with. They'll be the first port of call to have those conversations around appetite and risks. I am more than welcome and happy to come around the UK and sit down with you and meet with you and have conversations as well. Not that I need to, because we've got such a brilliant team that they can do it standing on their head as well. But that would be my first suggestion. Get in touch with your local underwriting team, have that initial conversation. We are more than happy to come out and have conversations with you about what RSA proposition looks like, what our appetite looks like, and how we can help out your insureds.
Thanks, Matt. Next question that's come in is a question around how can customers access the RSA business support tool?
Yeah, I can answer that one. So once they bind a policy, all of the information they need in terms of accessing the tool and the registration key are in the documents. So I think in the policy wording itself, at the start of it, before you get to the insuring clauses, we have a page where we summarize all of the additional benefits. So that tells them how they can get into registering and getting access. And then luckily we thought about this, because at first the access code was just printed in the policy wording, which meant that if we ever just shared a wording with someone so they could have a look at what the cover gave, we were given the PIN number to get in there. So luckily, we remembered and moved it to the schedule. So once they bind the policy, the schedule will tell them how to set themselves up. And then in the schedule, there's a PIN or a password so that they can actually do the final registration and get access to that online tool.
Thanks, Matt. Probably, Pat, just coming to yourself, a question that's come in around our underwriters. Are our underwriters, are they empowered and licensed to make decisions?
Yes, we look to empower our underwriters across the whole of the country, all the regions, as much as we can. We look for them to grow their license levels. We have a full license structure within each of our teams. So even if you're accessing one of our more junior underwriters within the team, they have access throughout the team. For instance, my team in London, we're currently a team of 11, soon to be 12. And we have a split group of probably, I think it's 4 or 5 of the more senior underwriters, a handful of mid-level underwriters, and 2 or 3 more junior underwriters, but they have easy access to all of the senior members of the team to help to empower them to provide you with the results and the responses you need. Within my team, for instance, we have weekly to bi-weekly what we call calibration sessions, so that we can actually talk about trends within the market, specific issues on particular risks. I spend a great deal of my time doing referrals to all of the team in relation to difficult risks, as do people like Nigel, Darren and Steve. So yes, there's full empowerment within the divisions, teams, and the ability to grow their licenses.
Brilliant, thanks Pat. And the final question that's come in, Matt's probably going back to yourself. Question has come in around, will your appetite extend to include trustees' liability for private or non-charitable family trusts?
Yeah, in fact, we have appetite to write those at the moment as well. Not necessarily within core appetite. So there's a bit of extra underwriting work that goes on, and that probably involves a bit more of a conversation in terms of us really getting our arms around each one of those risks and getting to really understand it. But if you have some of those already, then yeah, speak to your local underwriter. We'll have a look, and even if it's on the edge of the appetite, you know, we can at least have that honest conversation and kind of give you our thoughts on it too.
Yeah, and just to back that up, Matt, whilst we don't write financial institutions, pure financial institutions, as a broking community, you will often find you'll get responses from the market with FI underwriters saying this is too commercial, and commercial underwriters saying this is too FI. That sits perfectly in where we look to play from a financial institution's perspective. So always consider us and come to us to talk about those sort of risks. We don't currently write hedge funds, investment funds that are specifically related to hedge fund type risks. We don't write high street banks, etc. But we do write property investment funds. We do write, and we'll look at things like stock exchanges, insurance companies and the like.
Thank you both. And that's all the questions that we have that have come through from the attendees. Joe, any closing statement from yourself? Any?
Thanks, Mel. Thank you all to our presenters. Thank you to brokers who have joined our webinar today. As Matt said, please get in contact if you want to know more. But yeah, that concludes our webinar today. Thanks all.
Thank you all for attending.
Thank you.